La 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 la. Okay, so this is a TVT and the replay is labeled "How the hell did I lose this one? Damn production." I don't know what, I assume that means that you didn't make enough factories, which has been your consistent problem for a long time. I have noticed a lot of improvement on the number of workers you're making though, and that's cool. And in the last game of yours that I watched, you had double the income and double the army size and double the unit space of your opponent at a certain point in the game, and that is awesome. That is just what we want to be seeing, because honestly you shouldn't be in the same league as people who are not making any workers. You should be doubling their army size and moving up to the next league, which is, I believe, what's going on in the game. You do not send me. So I haven't pre-watched this. As you can see, the replay timer is just going along, doing its thing. So at 6 minutes, you've got a crap ton more workers than your opponent, and a whole buttload of income. And now you've got a million zillion unupgraded Marines. And in TVT, this is good if you catch him here, and it's good if you catch him here. But this is terrible if he sieges up right here, and then puts his Marine army right here and has an air unit floating there. Now he gets to force you to lift these and kill these while you can't attack him with Marines. You need tanks to fight him once he's sieged up that close to you. So you need vision in TVT. You can't live without vision. If you're going infantry versus tanks, or infantry versus you don't know what he's doing, you really need vision. Anyway, at this point, your money, it's only 8 minutes in, your money's already up to 600. That's very, very sad for us. But you do have 41 workers, which is great. I believe you could have had slightly more, but I think that you're doing good enough. Good enough, good enough. Because the benchmark at 8 minutes is 30, and so having 43 is awesome. It's crazy good. Same thing goes for, look how slow my freaking StarCraft is going. Like, move faster. It's on 2x right now, and it's going normal speed. Something wrong. 5 idle workers equals bad. This command center not being used, that's bad. 45 workers at 10 minutes is great. 47 workers at 10 minutes is great. I think the best you can do is 52, and you're close, man. This is a really good number of workers, but unfortunately your opponent is doing well as well. He actually has a bigger income than you going already. So you are trying to win an econ race, and he's just being more brazen about brazen. So look how well saturated his bases are, and he has more than 16 dudes on them. So every single one of his workers is doing what he wants to be doing. And over here at your base, this base has 2 extra workers, and you have 5 idle workers, and you have 3 dudes. This guy is stuck. No, he's not stuck. Okay. And you haven't landed your 3rd yet. So your opponent actually has the same number of workers as you, but a bigger income, just because he is being brazen. And your expo was so ballsy. You built it on the low ground. You didn't really defend it very well, and that's good. That's what I want you to be doing. But you should be ahead of him at this point on economy, not behind. This is like your whole game plan is to beat him on economy, and you're behind. So, use your ball sack, man. Be more brazen. Be brazen. Also, we noticed that one Hellion, not only did it delay your expansion, but it delayed you morphing that expansion into an orbital. And it delayed you transferring workers. It almost killed a bunch of workers, and it distracted you. You didn't make workers while that Hellion was harassing you. So you fell behind by 7 workers just because of one Hellion that wasn't really any threat whatsoever to a building. I mean, Hellions don't threaten buildings. So right now, oh, this is why he got so far ahead on workers. He made this 3rd command center like instantly, like instantaneous 3rd command center. That's really cool. I really think, you notice how he almost immediately at normal time scouts when you're going to take your 3rd. I do think that you should not be letting people get hidden bases against you. We've talked about this before. You've lost a lot of games throughout your lifetime to hidden bases, and there's just no reason to lose to hidden bases when you can just take 1 Marine and just patrol it over at his base and keep an eye on it. But honestly, if you lose, it's just like when you lose to mutas because you didn't make turrets. Like, if you lose to something just because, oh, brain fart, I didn't think of that, so I lost to it, don't worry about it, man. You lost to a hidden base. That's fine. So next time, scout. Make sure he doesn't get a hidden base, and you'll be fine. So at this point, he's getting further and further ahead economically. You're going to morph a PF down at your third. That's why you didn't get the orbital super quick. Look how good you're doing at spending your money, man. That is really low money. Low money. You made lots of extra buildings, and you're using them all. You're not really rallying them, so you've still got, if we look, 7 idle workers. You've had 5 to 7 idle workers like all game. Now you've got 3 idle workers. 2 idle workers, 3 idle workers, and nobody mining it at this base. So this is oversaturated, and nobody at your third. So we can look, even though you have 72 workers, you don't have the 3,500 income that you should have when you have 72 workers. If you have 72 workers and 2 mules, then you can use your cute little calculator and say 72 times 40 plus what? 160 plus 160 plus 160. No, you only have plus 0. Only 2 mules. So you should have a $3,200 income, and you have a 26. So you're short $600 because you're not mining at this base, and so all the workers at your natural and main are just kind of not working. So you do a good job there of resisting his Hellion harass, not taking any damage. That's good. Good work. And that's always been your strong suit for where you are on the ladder. You're really good at using your units. Burrow them freaking depots. Get these tanks out of your main. But you're at 200 unit space way before him. Look at this, way before him. And this is what we saw before. Like you make this huge army, and you're like, bam, 200 unit space. I am way better than you. Who's your daddy? And then you don't attack with it. You just sit there, and you're like, look at me. I've got 200 unit space. Look at me. Wah la 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 la. I think right now, if you walked up to this base, actually at any point, if you sent 4 Marines to each of those bases, you would have killed a crap ton of workers. So he's really counting on you not attacking him. His army is so much smaller than yours right now. If you had any vision of when it crossed the field, you could have intercepted it with your army. Your army right now is big enough to kill his army if you catch it unsieged. You've got 6 tanks to his 9, 2 Marauders, and 91 Marines. So if you go on the unit map tester and you put this army and you tell it to fight 91 Marines, unsieged, dead, instantly dead, no chance whatsoever, just massive victory. And your 2-2 upgrades against his 0-0, like, you should rip this army to shreds. But your army's kind of out of position. You don't see him coming, and you've been sitting on 200 unit space for so long. Every moment you sit on 200 unit space, he's catching up. So he used to be way behind you on army size, but as you wait and wait and wait, he's catching up and catching up. And then most, like, deadly thing that can ever happen in a TVT, you let him siege up within range of you. He should never get here to siege up, because that is a death blow. If you guys both have the same size army and he sieges up, you're dead. You got to catch his army crossing the field, or else not go mass marine. Because the only way Marines beat other stuff is if they fight them unsieged, and your dumb guys, the dumb siege tank things, try to siege up while they're fighting. So I don't know about this move from you. You're basically, no, this is good. You've basically defended back here, but I would like the Marines in front of the tanks. And now you're gonna go counterattack, but then you don't counterattack. You say, I'm gonna counterattack, but then you just said it. You didn't actually do it. So this drop is not doing anything. This drop is not doing anything. You could, these are orbitals with no units at them. You could easily completely stem for mining, and then it'd be 2 base versus 2 base, and you'd have the bigger army and the bigger production infrastructure, and you would be okay with that, right? So I've repeatedly said 3 factories. When you go Marines, you open Marine, then you suicide all those Marines, kill as much as you possibly can with them, and then you throw down 3 factories and mass siege tanks, because if he gets to your base with a bunch of siege tanks, the only defense against a bunch of siege tanks that are well protected on the ground is siege tanks. To fight siege tanks moving across the field, Marines dominate that. You catch them midfield unsieged, you stim in there, and you crush their faces. But once they're at your base sieged up, the only thing you can do is siege up just out of range of them and say you can't go any further. But you can't actually kill them. And so, yeah, dude. So, again, unprotected orbitals with crap tons of workers at them all game long, I would take that as the main message of this game, even though you beat him on army size all game long. I would say it's still kind of silly to let him just keep that many unprotected OCs full of workers. So at this point, you're way ahead. You've got a much bigger army, but he's got a bunch of siege tanks sieged up at your base, and you've got lots of tanks of your own, but they're not really positioned defensively. They're positioned to defend against these tanks, but you don't really need to defend against those tanks. And he has the vision advantage. You've got lots of Marines. I don't know. I feel like from this position, it should be pretty hard for you to lose, except if his tanks get in range of your tank and just knock it down. So from here, you should be pumping 3 tanks at once. Like I said before, you really want the 3 factories. And getting ready, like you know that his only chance here is to stop your production the way you're stopping his. So you want your guys to be spread here, and spread here. And then when he comes in towards you with these siege tanks, then you pull all of your workers and you attack, move into his tanks, and then wait till the workers start taking siege tank fire, and then stim and push in with all your Marines, push in with all your tanks, siege up, and the game ends because you have a much bigger army than him. And even if you had a smaller army than him, workers are really good at breaking siege tank lines because they don't stand next to your Marines because they're melee range and your Marines aren't. So good job wiping out his production. He's got infinite money in the bank right now, so your only chance is to continually keep him at 0 production infrastructure, no supply depots. Don't let him build supply depots anywhere. But another big thing is that these tanks are just ripping you to shreds, and there's only 6 of them. You have more than 6 tanks of your own. You have you have 8 tanks, so you shouldn't be losing anything to 6 tanks. These tanks are not being used. These tanks are not being used. These tanks are not being used. This tank's not being used. You're basically not mining right now, but it doesn't matter because you have 5,000 minerals. So income is no longer a concern. Right now, the only concern is supply depots. If you can prevent him from building any supply depots, you can win. And I don't know. From this point, it's just kind of obvious that you should have won and you lost, and that happens to everybody. You're paying more attention to your offense than your defense, even though your offense has already done everything that it can reasonably do in this short period of time. You allow him to completely stop mining, even though he's only got 6 tanks and nothing to support them. You could easily kill those 6 tanks with your 10 tanks and 8 million workers and bajillions of Marines, but you're just kind of afraid of them. You're like, oh, these are scary. Oh. Kill the depots, move on. Kill the depots, move on. Leave Marines behind in all the places that you leave, because 1 Marine costs practically nothing. You got tons of them. Just leave them there. Every time you're looking away, you're letting this happen. This is bad. This is bad. This is bad. In the production menu, we should see nothing but siege tanks or battle cruisers from you at this point, and you're making more and more and more and more Marines. This is bad, bad. More Marines. Marines are not what you want at this point. After a certain point, Marines become useless in the late game TVP. Not completely useless, but like you want 20 of them with medevacs to do constant distraction drops and protect your tanks from air and stuff, but you never really want to have 90 Marines and nothing else. That's not very useful, because he's just going to make tanks, and if you don't have more tanks than him, he's just going to move these tanks closer and closer until you lose. And theoretically, sure, you should be able to stop these tanks from getting close to you because you have more tanks than him, but you're not using your tanks. You're not understanding that your primary unit at this point is siege tanks. It's not your Marines. Your Marines are not what you're going for. So I feel it. He knows the secret of late game TVP, which is mass siege tank. You do not know that secret. You're making Marines at 25 minutes in, and you're just going to lose because of that. So I'm okay with it, man. I'm okay with it. The important thing about this game was that you beat him to 200, and then you had problems that lost you the game from there. And those problems were hidden bases, right? From your perspective, he has no extra bases, and he's had a third since 6 minutes maybe, Hidden bases. You need to know when your opponent is expanding. Second, you need to attack before you hit 200 unit space, because what's the point in having 200 unit space against 160 if you don't attack? If you just sit there and wait till he has 200 as well, it doesn't matter that you got there first because you didn't use it. Third, 3 factories at the very least 3 factories, and emphasize siege tanks in the opening from 0 to 160. You're all about the Marines, but after 160, you're all about the siege tanks. Marines come as a side effect of mining minerals and having a ton of racks. You can make Marines with your eyes closed. Marines, easy peasy. What you really want to pay attention to is your siege tank count. Make sure you have lots of siege tanks. Make sure you use them properly. Third or fourth, the whole point of going heavy Marines with upgrades is how good they are at doing drops. And you did do a drop, and you did win the game with it, basically. You eliminated his entire main with that drop, but you should have done it almost immediately after you got medevacs. Like, your first 4 medevacs should always do a drop. Always. And if that drop, runs into really heavily defended main base, then fine. Go away and, hit his main instead, or hit him up the front instead, or knock down expos instead. But as soon as you have a 4th medevac, you should always do a drop. That's just the rule of Marine heavy TVT. And don't try not to lose the drop, but don't worry so much about losing the drop that you don't do it. Even if you've seen him have 7 Vikings and you're like, if I do a drop, he'll just kill it with his 7 Vikings. So walk your drop over to his main, over to like right here along the ground so that the Vikings can't kill the medevacs. And then see if you can do the drop. And if he's got his Vikings holding position here, walk along the ground over here. And if he chases you with his Vikings again, walk along the ground over here. And eventually he's gonna be too busy moving his actual army, or too busy attacking you, or too busy saturating his 4th, or too busy doing something to actually keep up with your drop with those Vikings, and you're gonna be able to get in and do a drop. And even if you can't, at least you tried. The drop is really crucial. Much more importantly than that is the vision thing. In infantry versus tank warfare, in infantry versus mech warfare, it's all about catching the tanks far away from your main. The further away from your main you catch the tanks, the better, because Marines instantly reinforce. You make probably 14 Marines every 30 seconds. So if you lose your whole army and then he's pushing towards your base, in 1 minute before he gets to your base, you're going to have 28 more Marines, and that's enough to fight him. So you really want to catch him around midfield, or even outside his own base. Just the further away from your base that you fight his army, the better. You never want to be fighting near your own base, because once he encroaches with tanks, it becomes really hard to remove them. Another big, huge concern was obviously how well you saturated. You put too many guys in both of these places, and then late game, the production menu should be only BCs and tanks, or BC Thor tank, or BC tank Viking, or just tanks. That would be fine. It doesn't make any sense to be massing Marines super late. It's not going to work. And yeah, so I agree with the title of this video. You played better than him. You should have won. But there are just some things you fundamentally don't understand about playing against a mech Terran with a Marine upgrade composition, and you gotta learn those things. And I've just stated them, and so yeah, you'll do better next time. Drops, scouting, tanks, freaking tanks, and using the tanks you had so many tanks and you didn't use them. You had more tanks than him in this local battle. It was 6 against 8, and you didn't even use them. Yeah. So